He publicly transferred my shares to his lover on a stage, under bright lights, in front of cameras, humiliating me so deliberately that the audience held its breath waiting for me to shatter. But I didn't. I didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't even blink. Instead, I smirked, and if they had looked closely at that smirk, they would have known it wasn't surrender. It was the beginning of the end for him. People like him never imagine the quiet person standing next to them could be dangerous. They never imagine their own arrogance could trap them. They never imagine that the humiliation they create for others will become their downfall. But he imagined none of this when he stepped onto that stage with his chest puffed and his ego inflated enough to touch the ceiling. The hall was enormous, the kind used for royal weddings or billionaire charity events. A golden chandelier hung over us, scattering warm light on the polished marble floor. Rows of velvet seats were filled with investors, journalists, influencers, and sycophants who worshipped money more than morality. They were all waiting for the big announcement. For weeks, the company had teased a historic shift, a new era, a change that would shake the industry. Everyone was expecting innovation. No one was expecting betrayal. He walked toward the podium with his lover standing to the right, slightly behind him. She wore a white dress that sparkled under the lights, and a smile that could slice through iron sharp, confident, rehearsed. She knew exactly what he was about to do. She had been waiting for this moment. Maybe she thought this public humiliation of me was her coronation. Maybe she'd rehearsed how she'd look in the photos, how the world would see her as the new woman, the chosen one. What she didn't realize was that crowns placed by unfaithful hands crumble quicker than they shine. He cleared his throat dramatically before speaking. Every camera shifted to him, microphones reaching forward like hungry mouths. His voice boomed across the hall. Polished, smooth, rehearsed like everything else he did. Today marks a new chapter for our company, he said, pausing to let the anticipation rise. A chapter built on loyalty, dedication, and unwavering partnership. Loyalty, dedication, unwavering partnership. Words he had used on me for years. Words he now weaponized against me. I kept my chin high, hands clasped in front of me. From the outside, I looked still. But inside, I felt my pulse in my ears. Not because I was heartbroken. I had crossed the line between heartbreak and clarity a long time ago. What I felt was rage, cold, steady, controlled. Then he said the line that would make headlines for the next week. Effective immediately. I am transferring 20% of my shares to my partner, Alina. Applause erupted like thunder. A photographer shouted, "Smile, please," at the new couple. Someone from the audience yelled, "Bold move," and I stood there on the same stage where he had once promised, "We'll build this empire together." I stood as he publicly cut my dignity into pieces and handed them to the woman he cheated with. He didn't even look at me. That was the part that made my jaw tighten, not the betrayal, not the shares, not even the public spectacle, but the fact that in the moment he tried to break me, he didn't think I was worth facing. As if I had never mattered. As if everything I did for him was disposable. But when the lights flashed in my direction, when the cameras pointed at me, waiting emotionally for my collapse, I gave them the last expression they expected. A smirk. It was small, controlled, sharp enough to be a warning. And in that instant, I saw his confidence falter. His forehead creased for the first time that night. He turned slightly, eyes narrowing as if he suddenly remembered that I wasn't a silent background character in his movie. For the first time, he looked unsure. Good. He didn't know that hours earlier I had received an email from my attorney confirming that the original company charter written on my laptop, typed with my fingers, reviewed by my legal advisor before his involvement, explicitly restricted unilateral share transfers. Any major transfer required several layers of approval, all of which he had bypassed. My name was tied to that clause. My signature was tied to that clause. And the violation he committed publicly on camera in the presence of over 200 witnesses and 13 news platforms streaming live. Every second of his arrogance tonight was evidence. Every camera flash was a timestamp. Every clap was a document seal. The humiliation I felt standing there was temporary. What he had done to himself was permanent. He wrapped up the announcement with more grand gestures and empty promises. The audience devoured it all, mesmerized by the drama they didn't realize they were part of. When he finally stepped back and gave Alina the spotlight, she strutted to the microphone like a bride walking down the aisle. She thanked him, thanked the company, thanked the universe. thanked everyone except the woman whose work she now benefited from. I walked off the stage while they were still celebrating. I didn't look back. The air outside was cold, slicing into my skin like truth. I inhaled deeply, grounding myself. My heels clicked slowly on the sidewalk as I walked to my car, each sound matching the steadiness of my heartbeat. People assumed silence meant defeat. They had no idea silence could also mean strategy. That night, I sat at my dining table, under the warm glow of a lamp, the world outside quiet and unaware of the storm coming. I opened my laptop and reread the documents my attorney sent. Every clause, every line, every date, every protection I had put in place at the beginning, not because I didn't trust him then, but because I trusted myself enough to plan for what life could become. He thought he played me. He didn't realize I had written the rules of the game. My phone buzzed nonstop texts from colleagues, friends, reporters. I ignored all of them. I didn't owe the world an explanation. Not yet. As I closed the laptop, I whispered one sentence to the empty room, the same sentence that had been simmering in me all day. You really thought you won. The smirk tugged at my lips again. Tonight was not the end of my story. Tonight was the beginning of his downfall. He thought the worst had passed after that night. He thought the humiliation he delivered was the closing act. That my silence meant surrender, that the world would forget me while he rose into his self-made spotlight with the woman he crowned on stage. But the real storm hadn't even touched him yet. And the moment he walked into that boardroom 3 days later, he stepped straight into the one thing I had prepared quietly, patiently, flawlessly, his reckoning. The conference room held an energy that didn't match his arrogance. The long glass table reflected the tension in the air as board members took their seats, faces unreadable. Hands folding pens, documents spread neatly. I arrived before him and sat at the opposite end, calm, composed. My expression the same one that had unsettled him on stage. That smirk. He hated that smirk, because he still couldn't understand why I wore it. When he entered the room with Alina at his side, it was clear they expect applause, respect, authority, something that once came easily to him. But instead, silence greeted them. Silence so heavy, it felt like a warning. He tried to lighten the room with a rehearsed smile, but the chairman's neutral stare cut through it. He attempted casual confidence as he sat down, leaning back in his chair. Alina sat beside him, crossing her legs elegantly, though her eyes scanned the room nervously. She recognized something he didn't: the shift, the unspoken tension, the way people were looking at me instead of him. The chairman started the meeting with a clipped tone. Before we begin today's agenda, there's a pressing matter we must address. My fingers rested lightly on the thick folder in front of me. The room seemed to hold its breath. The chairman turned to him. It has come to our attention that a public share transfer was announced without board approval. He stiffened. I am the co-founder. I have the authority to know. My voice cut cleanly through his sentence. I didn't raise it. I didn't need to. You had authority, not absolute power. His jaw tightened, irritation flaring in his eyes. This again. You're upset. You're emotional. You're blowing this out of. I slid the folder forward, letting it land with a heavy thud on the glass table. These are the documents from the original company charter, signed by both of us. Dated. Verify. With legal witnesses. Documents you conveniently pretended didn't exist when you transferred 20% of shares to your mistress. The word mistress made Alina flinch. Her fingers froze on the table. He tried to keep his composure, but the edge in his voice betrayed him. This is a business decision. My personal life has nothing to do with, it has everything to do with the fact that you violated 3 binding clauses, I replied, locking eyes with him. Clause 2.4. All share transfers require dual founder approval. Clause 3.1. No shares may be transferred publicly before internal compliance review. Clause 5.6. No unilateral decisions exceeding 10% equity may be finalized without board vote. The board members leaned in, the weight of truth settling around them. The chairman tapped the table. She is correct. These were signed when the company was established. He blinked rapidly, panic flickering behind his eyes like a candle losing oxygen. So what? She's holding onto old paperwork. Old paperwork that protects the company you just jeopardized, I said. You didn't just break a rule. You broke the foundation. For a moment he was speechless. Then came the desperation. "This is revenge," he snapped. "She's angry that I moved on, that I chose someone else. She's emotional." I let out a soft laugh. The room froze. Even I felt the coldness in my own voice. "Emotional? You humiliated me on stage with the confidence of a man who thought there would be no consequences. But the truth is, this isn't about emotions. This is about the law. And tonight, the law is the only thing that matters." The chairman opened the folder. The sound of paper shifting filled the room like thunder. "Given the violations," he announced, "your voting power is suspended effective immediately. The share transfer is invalid. All rights revert to internal review." His mouth dropped open. He looked at the board, then at me, then at Alina, who had gone pale. "What? You can't do that. I'm the co-founder, and co-founders are bound by contracts," the chairman said calmly. He turned to me, pleading now. "You're doing this because you want to hurt me." "No," I replied. "I'm doing this because you tried to erase me." Silence swallowed the room again. The chairman continued. "Given the instability caused, we must also appoint an interim CEO until this legal matter resolves." I already knew what was coming. The board had spoken to me privately. The shareholders trusted me. The employees respected me. The company knew who built its backbone. But I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The chairman looked at the table. "Our unanimous vote is for her." Every head nodded. His face drained of all life. "No, no, no, no. You can't." But the board had already moved on. The decision was final. He wasn't the center anymore. He was the lesson. When the meeting ended, people gathered their things quickly, avoiding his gaze. No one congratulated him. No one offered support. The power he flaunted had evaporated in minutes. He followed me into the hallway, his footsteps sharp, uneven, angry. "You ruined me," he hissed, grabbing my arm. I pulled my arm back with calm precision. "Don't touch me." He froze, stunned by my tone. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a level that pierced deeper than any shout. "You ruined yourself when you forgot who helped you build everything. You betrayed me publicly, so you were corrected publicly. I didn't destroy your career. Your choices did." His breath shook, his eyes filled with a fear he never expected to feel. Alina walked up behind him, standing quietly, almost small. Without a word, she let go of his arm and stepped back. She didn't want to go down with him. His downfall wasn't cinematic. It wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet. It was the slow, brutal realization that the woman he dismissed was the woman holding the structure together all along. Without me, he was nothing more than reckless ambition wrapped in empty charm. Days later, the media uncovered the documents. Articles exploded. Headlines compared the public humiliation he gave me to the public ruin he walked into. But I didn't release a statement. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. The truth carried itself. Weeks turned into months. Under my leadership, the company stabilized and thrived. Investors trusted the calm. Employees trusted the vision. And I trusted myself more than ever before. One evening, as I stood by my office window watching the city light flicker like scattered gold, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. Not because I won. Winning was never the goal, but because I reclaimed myself. Some stories are about revenge. Mine wasn't. Mine was about respect, about dignity, about refusing to let someone rewrite my worth. And as I looked out at the skyline, I whispered the truth I wanted every woman listening to hold close. You don't need to break someone to rise. Sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one lifting the world.